أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث إلى كافة الورى بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته أئمة الهدى ومصابيح الدجى الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قالوا سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. As you heard a few moments ago, the title of tonight's lecture is The Chivalrous Youth, for reasons that will become apparent quite soon. And I've chosen this also in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi, whose tragic martyrdom we are still mourning. And you will see the connection between this great personality and this topic very shortly. I'd like to begin by going through a story in the Quran which is quite famous. This story is about Nabi Ibrahim, and it involves that incident when he smashes up those idols. So this is narrated to us in Surah Al-Anbiya. And what happened was, just as a quick recap of the story, when the people had left the town, Nabi Ibrahim wanted to demonstrate to them that their belief in these idols is completely mistaken. They are so wrong in worshipping these man-made idols. So he devises a strategy to prove his point. And there are many lessons we can get from this incident. So what he does is, when they all go out of the town, he smashes all the idols except the biggest one. And then when they come back and they see all the idols are in pieces, they are obviously very upset. And they say that, who has done this? So then they say, in verse number 60 of Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quotes them as saying, قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا فَتًى يَذْكُرُهُمْ يُقَالُ لَهُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ. The verse that I recited at the beginning of this majlis. It means that we heard that there is a fata. Now this is where the whole lecture revolves around, this word fata. For now we'll just translate it as youth or a young man. So we heard that there's a young man, there's a fata, who speaks ill about these idols. He was talking badly about them, and they call him Ibrahim. So now they say that, okay, call Ibrahim and we will have him in front of the people. They will bear witness against him. So they call him, he's there in front of them. And they ask him that, who did this to our gods? So Nabi Ibrahim, look at his strategy. So clever, a simple plan, but very effective. This tells us sometimes that when we want to try and demonstrate our point to people who don't have the same beliefs as us, we don't always have to come up with very complicated arguments, very sophisticated proofs. Sometimes the most simple of arguments will suffice. So what does he say to them? He says that, well, if you want to know who smashed up your idols, why don't you ask them? This is when it begins to dawn on them. They begin to realize how wrong their beliefs are. So they hang their heads down, because now they know that they don't have an answer, they are ashamed. And they say that, you know that they don't speak. So now Nabi Ibrahim, he completes the point he wanted to make. He says that, so then, do you take for your Lord, apart from Allah, something that neither can benefit you nor harm you? So now, of course, the point is proven that these idols that I smashed up, they can't even tell you who did this to them. And they can't give you any benefit, they can't give you any harm. So why are you worshipping such a thing? Now, like I said, the whole topic of this discussion revolves around how Allah describes Nabi Ibrahim. He uses the word Fata. And as we said, that it's okay for now to translate as young man or a youth. This is why I call this whole topic the chivalrous youth. But you'll see where it comes, the difference comes in. Let's have a look at this. Is it really simply youth, this word Fata? Does it simply mean young man, or is there more to it? Indeed, there is much more to this word Fata. If we look in the Quran, this is the best way to get our inspiration from. What does the Quran say about other people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes as Fata? Is it only Ibrahim alayhi salam, or are there others as well? Indeed, there are another group of people in the Quran who are also called Fatas. But here, Allah uses the plural, Fitya. Fitya, it just means Fatas, is plural of Fata. Where and who are these people? They are the Ashabul Kahf, the companions of the cave. Where does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say this? In two places in the chapter of Al-Kahf, verse number 10 and verse number 13. Is awal fityatu ilal kahf, when the fatas took refuge in the cave. This is verse number 10. And then in verse number 13, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word fitya. Innahum fityatun amanu bi rabbihim. They were fatas who had faith in their Lord. Now, in order to show why this word Fata cannot simply be translated as youth or young man, we need to look at these other verses, and they will help us to explain other verses. As Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi, he tells us a very important principle which I've mentioned in brief in one of the previous majalis about how to do tafsir. And he says the best way is to look at other verses of the Quran. The Quran does tafsir of itself. He says, وَيَشْهَدُ بَعْدُهُ عَلَى بَعْدٍ وَيَنْتِقُ بَعْدُهُ عَلى بَعْدٍ. So some of them, they testify, some of the verses, some of the parts of the Quran testify over other parts, and some parts speak about other parts. So when we look at these other places where Allah uses the word Fatah, we see that we are beginning to develop a good picture of what type of people Fatas are. First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these companions of the cave are Fatas. Then he says three verses later that they believed in their Lord. Now, a very interesting question is that why does Allah repeat the word Fata again just 3 verses later? He's already said, it's like saying the Fatas, these Fatas took refuge in the cave. Then a few more verses, and then just 3 verses later, they indeed were Fatas who believed in their Lord. There was no need to mention the word Fata again. Allah could have just said, Innahum amanu bi rabbihim, meaning they believed in their Lord. It was enough to say they believed in the Lord. Why? Because he's already said that they are Fatas. He says they were youths, they were Fatas who believed in their Lord. So this is a question for us. Oh Allah, why have you repeated the word again? Some of the Mufassirin and the exegetes and the commentators of the Quran, they say there is a significant reason why Allah repeats the word Fatas. And that is to show that this characteristic that they had was extremely important in what they did. It's not just by chance Allah mentions this word. He mentions it to draw our attention to this characteristic of these people, that they were fatas, and because they were fatas, they took refuge in the cave and they stood up to the disbelievers. So now we have some common ground between what Nabi Ibrahim did and what these companions of the cave did. Nabi Ibrahim also took up a stance against the disbelievers. He also was trying to prove a point. He was also trying to preserve the laws of Allah and the beliefs in one God. The Ashabul Kahf, who are described as fatas, also were trying to do this. So now it's giving us a good idea of what this is all about. When we look at the root of this word fatah, it comes from the word futuwa. This is the key part of this whole lecture. Futuwa. What is futuwa? It doesn't simply mean youthfulness or something like that. In fact, in English, it's very difficult to translate futuwa. But the nearest word that comes to it is chivalry. That's why I call this lecture the chivalrous youth. So someone who's fatah is a chivalrous person. Now, what is chivalry? Who is a chivalrous person? Through my research, I found 5 characteristics of chivalry. And these are the 5 characteristics that both Nabi Ibrahim possessed, also the Ashabul Kahf possessed, and we will see Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He also possessed it in the highest possible degree. In fact, if you have a look at the inscription on the sword, just on the top there, what does it say?
Opening.
Exactly. It's not fatah. Sorry?
It's not fatah, not fatah.
Yeah, it's not fatah. Yeah, it's fatah. Fatah. This is the same word that I'm talking about. The fa, the ta, and the ya. We call it ya maksura with an alif. Yeah, exactly. Right. So la fatah illa Ali, la sayfa illa dhul faqar. Now, inshallah, you will begin to realize. Usually people translate it as there is no youth like Ali, there is no sword like Zulfaqar. It's not youth. We can translate it as youth because the word has become used like that over the course of history, over the course of time. It's not totally wrong, but it doesn't give you the depth of meaning of the word fatah. So, fatah comes from the root word futuwa, chivalry. So those 5 characteristics are as follows. First of all, a person who is fatah always will be brave and courageous. He will always be loyal. A fatah will always stand up for the truth and he will defend the truth. He will have concern for other people and he will have honor. These are the 5 characteristics. Nabi Ibrahim had them, the Ashabul Kahf had them, and we will see how Mawla Amir displayed them at the highest level as well. So, futuwa is someone who is chivalrous, meaning he has honor, loyalty, he stands up for the truth, he has consideration for others, and he is courageous. Now, when we look at it like this, we see that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell us when He says, He repeats the word fitya, is that because they were chivalrous, they were able to take this stance against the disbelievers. Because they were chivalrous. Otherwise he would not have repeated this word fitya again. Ibrahim is fatah, Ashabul Kahf are fatah, and these other great people that we'll mention were also fatah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, before we explain even some more issues and points about this, and then we'll see some practical tips as to how we can, inshallah, raise our children to be fatahs, to be chivalrous, and also to increase the futuwa in ourselves as adults. It's important for everyone. But if we raise a community of fatahs, then really these will be the future leaders who will take our community to greater heights and greater aims and objectives than we were managed to do, inshallah. So this is what I want to try and put forward tonight, how we as parents can raise our children in this way, and also at the same time we try to strengthen our futuwa as well. We have a great tradition from Imam Jafar Sadiq sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now Now this is really quite scary and also worthy of contemplation. He says, the best of your youth are those who resemble your adults. The best of your youth are those who resemble your adults. Meaning they are mature, they are fatas, they are chivalrous. And then he says, the worst of your adults are those who resemble your youth. Sometimes adults, if they don't act like adults, if they act like just immature youth people as they are typically stereotyped as, then he describes them as being the worst of our adults. So what this is telling us is that this futuwa actually is not limited to age. That's why youth and young man is not such a great translation of the word fata. In fact, from our traditions, you know how they describe the Ashabul Kahf? They do not say that the Ashabul Kahf were youth. Ashabul Kahf were older people actually, middle-aged, around middle-aged. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not talking about age when He calls Ashabul Kahf fitya. He's not talking about them being young in terms of age. He's talking about them being young of heart. He's talking about being youthful, not youths. It's a characteristic. Someone who's youthful is known as a fata. This is what we get from the traditions. Now look at our great role models that we have in our history. Look at the fatas that we all know about. In Karbala, how many fatas were there? Well, Ali Akbar definitely was a fata. Qasim was a fata. Aoun, Muhammed, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'een. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. They were all fatas because they exemplified the chivalrous nature. Who else? Well, look at our imams. We have imams who were leaders at a very young age. They became imams at an extremely young age. But they were fatas because of these characteristics. So my younger brothers and sisters, this is very important that they themselves understand that they can really take on responsibilities and inshallah guide the community, not when they're very old even, but they can start and we can help them, we can encourage them by giving them small responsibilities, gradually increasing them, gradually training them so that they take on the roles of leadership of the community. This is what is needed for us. So, our imams, like our ninth holy imam, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Muhammad al-Taqi, he said he was the imam at the age of 7 years, exactly 7 years and 4 months. How about the 10th holy imam, Imam Ali al-Naqi, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Muhammad. 7 years and 11 months. Now, how about our own Imam Al-Mahdi Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajul sharif. When did he become the Imam? At the age of 4 years and 7 months. So this is telling us to have this characteristic of futuwa. It does not depend on age. It depends on maturity, responsibility, and those 5 characteristics of courage, loyalty, bravery, consideration for others, honor, and upholding the truth. If someone can do this, Allah regards them as being fatah. So now, what about the greatest fatah of all? Well, this was told to us in the Battle of Uhud. In the Battle of Uhud, when all the companions deserted Rasul al-Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who was it that defended the Holy Prophet when others ran away? It was none other than Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi. And at that time when he defended the Prophet, there was a cry from the heavens. What was that cry that everyone heard? La fata illa Ali, la sayfa illa dhul fiqar. This is what is meant, that there is no fatah. Now when this cry comes down, no fatah except Ali, who does that include? When you say there is none apart from so-and-so, it means throughout history. It includes Nabi Ibrahim. It includes Ashabul Kahf. Even they did not match the fatwa of Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen. La fata illa Ali, meaning from start to finish. There was no fata apart from Ali, meaning he was the most chivalrous youth that we have ever seen. Most chivalrous person that we have ever had. La sayfa illa dhul faqar. So now, when we look at it like this, we see that this is indeed a characteristic that we as parents should try and inculcate in our children. Let's see from the lives of the Ahlul Bayt as to how we can do this, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Well, the Ahlul Bayt, they give us many examples, but this one in particular will inshallah suffice for us. It tells us how they raised their children to be fatas. Our 8th Holy Imam, Imam Ali ibn Mutawriza, salawatullah wasalam alayhi. You will recall that he was in Khurasan. Now, where was his son, the 9th Holy Imam, Imam al-Jawad? He was in Medina still, right? So now, Imam Rida alayhi salam would make it a point to keep in touch with his son. This is really important. We can derive a number of lessons from this. So there's a letter from him that has reached us where he says that, oh son, he's writing to the 9th Holy Imam in Medina, and he's saying, oh son, it has been brought to my attention that when you want to leave the house, the servants are telling you to go from the back door. Now he says that this is because of their stinginess. They are worried that when you go out from the front door, people are going to ask you for some charity, and you will have to give them money. So because of their stinginess, they are telling you to go from the back door, so less people see you. And then he says that by the right I have over you, meaning me as a father, I am telling you to do this. He says when you go out, make sure that you always go out from the front door, so that people see you, people meet you. And make sure that you always have some coins of gold and silver in your pocket. Why? He says that so that when people see you, they meet you, they ask you for something, you give it to them. You don't try to keep it for yourself, or you don't try to be miserly like these servants want you to be. You give in the way of Allah. Now, he says that he even specifies how much he should give to his uncles and aunts. He says that if one of our uncles comes to you and asks you for some charity, make sure you give them a minimum of X amount. And if you want to give them more, then give them more. If one of our aunties comes to you, then give them a minimum of X amount. And if you want to give them more, give them more. And he says that do not fear poverty. I want to raise you. Now, how is this a lesson for us as parents? Well, first of all, when we look at this, and of course, as we are on the topic of giving in the way of Allah, Mu'mineen, please do try and contribute as much as you possibly can towards these majalis, because without your financial help, of course, these majalis cannot continue. And the management has been very, very forthright in preparing these wonderful programs for yourselves. And it really is something that we can all contribute as much as we possibly can. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So he says that give in the way of Allah, do not fear poverty. Now, what lessons can we derive from this in terms of raising our children as fatas? First lesson is that we must make it a point to keep in touch with our children. Sometimes our children, either they're with us still, or they might have traveled, they might have gone to study, they've gone to work somewhere else, and we lose contact. Well, our situation is not going to be harder than Imam Raza's. Imam Raza, where was he? In Khurasan. He was under those extremely difficult circumstances that Harun and then Ma'mun had put for him. Then where was his son? His son was all the way in Medina. In those days, you had to go through a lot of effort to get a letter from one place to another. But still, the Imam made it a point to keep in touch with his son. He made it a point to make time and write a letter Send it with a courier so that it goes all the way to Medina and gets to his son. Now, for us, my brothers and sisters, for me first and foremost, I have to learn from this that really in this day and age of fast communications, of mobile technology, video conferencing, emails, social networking, there is absolutely no excuse why we should not keep regular and effective communication with our children. This is one of the great problems that we are facing in our community, especially when the generation gap becomes bigger and bigger. That children, they don't speak enough to their parents, to their grandparents. Parents and grandparents do not speak enough to their children. This guidance, the wisdom that adults have to pass on to their children is being lost. And they are beginning to fend for themselves. They are getting guidance from their friends, from the TV, from the internet, from their peers, from the things that they have around them. This is a problem. The best guidance is the guidance of adults, of parents, of grandparents. There must be this communication. This is the first lesson we get from this letter. The second lesson we gain from this, if we want to raise our children as fatas, is that we must take an interest in what they are doing. Sometimes we don't know what our children are doing. It might be some sports, it might be their job, it might be their social life, their religious life. We don't take an interest sometimes, not all the time, I'm just saying generally, but sometimes we don't take that interest. Look what the Imam did. He said that it's come to me, I've known that this is what is happening. He took that interest and then he made it a point to guide his holy son. And the third point we get from this letter is that we must concentrate our efforts more on the spiritual aspects of our children's upbringing. Look what the Imam concentrated on. Did he say that this is with regards to your job, to your health, to your social life? He wasn't talking about those things. These things are important. We need to always keep on track. We need to communicate on all levels about our children's jobs. Yes, their education, but their friends, their social lives, their family lives. But sometimes we do not concentrate on their spiritual upbringing, their spiritual training. What are they doing in terms of their ibadat? What are they doing in terms of attending programs? Where are they going? Why aren't they coming to the mosque, for example? What about their friends? What type of friends are they keeping? These are all to do with their spiritual training. Look what the Imam does. Instead of saying that somehow he's worried about Imam Jawad giving too much money, what does he do? He says, give in the way of Allah. Give more in the way of Allah. Make sure that you have extra money with you that you can give in the way of Allah. These are all lessons for us. We must concentrate as well on the spiritual training and the upbringing of our children. We should never make them think that if they do these type of things, that they will be in poverty. They will be in some type of problem. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now, when we look at it like this, we see that the Quran has so much guidance for us. Of course, even from the traditions. Let me just give you one example. Sometimes we think that if we're going to do this, it might not come back to us. Believe me, our children, as you all know, it's just a reminder, of course, our children are the greatest investments for us. The greatest investment in the akhirah for us are our children. It comes back to us. Let me give you this example. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah wa salam alayhi, he reports this about Isa ibn Maryam. Nabi Isa, it is reported from our sixth holy Imam, was one day going past a grave. When he went past this grave, he saw with his ilmul ghaib that this grave, the person there is being punished. Now, the next year he goes past the same grave. And this time, he doesn't see this punishment taking place. So now he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that why isn't this person being punished anymore? Look at the response. The response is this, that he had a walad salih, a righteous son, a good son. This son did two things. One, he repaired a road, and two, he gave shelter to some orphans. And because of that, I am not punishing his father. Allahu Akbar. Because his son did these two things, repaired the road, and he gave shelter to some orphans, because of his good deeds, I am not punishing his father. So whatever we do with our children is going to come back to us anyway, in this world and in the akhirah. Sallu ala Muhammad. So now in the Quran we are told how to communicate as well with our children. Another example, like I said, the Quran and the Sunnah are the best guidance for us. In Surah As-Safat, we are told about another incident involving Nabi Ibrahim, ala nabiyina wa alihi wa alayhi salam, that how he communicated with his son Ismail. So you all know the story is when Nabi Ibrahim had seen that dream that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him to now sacrifice his son. So it's a long story, but the point that I want to make is relating to verse 102 of Surah Safat. Here, look how Nabi Ibrahim discusses this whole event with his son. It's really inspirational for us parents. But then, there's also something that we learn about how children should respond to their parents as well. So, Nabi Ibrahim, he comes to his child and look how he greets him. He doesn't say, Falan, or he doesn't say son, or he doesn't say so-and-so, or something like that. He says to him, Ya Bunay. Ya Bunay in Arabic means, oh my dear son. Oh my son, who I regard as being very close to my heart. It means something like that. It's a term of endearment. Ya Bunay. So then he says that I have seen this dream that I've been told to sacrifice you. Now, it's such a sensitive situation. What father would talk to their child like Nabi Ibrahim? Look how he does it. He actually consults his son in this. He says, Fanzur maza tara. It means that see what you think. Allahu Akbar. Sometimes we do not involve our children in our decision making. We should involve them. When we consult them and we bring them in and we ask them their opinion, sometimes it might not be that important for us to act upon what they say. Nobody's saying that we do exactly what our children say, but it is involving them, is making them feel important that, oh, my dad is asking me and I feel part of the family. I feel that I can contribute something here. So he says to his son, Hazrat Ismail, see what you think. Allahu Akbar. These are lessons for us. How we should greet our children with affection and with love. We should involve them in our decision making. Ask them their opinion. This is how we will train them to be fatas. They feel that they are now getting responsible. They feel that, oh, Baba is asking me my opinion. And they will gradually gain confidence. Then what? How does Hazrat Ismail respond? So for children, there's also a lesson here. He doesn't just say, oh dad, don't do this. What are you doing? What are you thinking about? How can you even ask me this? He doesn't answer back. Look how he answers. He says, Ya abatif'al ma tu'mar. Oh my father, do whatever you have been commanded to do. You know what this means? For a father, how difficult must it be to say that I have been instructed by Allah to slaughter you? Must be the hardest thing in the world. So Hazrat Ismail, look how he tries to make it easy for his father. He doesn't repeat that very sensitive sentence. He doesn't say, for example, oh father, yes, slaughter me. Because if he says that, he's repeating those very sensitive words, slaughter, kill me, take my life. He doesn't say any of that. He says, he makes it as easy as possible for Nabi Ibrahim. He says, do whatever you have been commanded to do. Allahu Akbar. it makes Nabi Ibrahim feel easier in this very difficult task. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So these are all lessons for us, how we as parents should treat our children and address them, talk to them, and how children should do this with us as well. So the final point I would like to mention is again from an incident in the Quran. All of these stories, inshallah, tomorrow I will, because it's the night of the Quran, the most likelihood that the night of Qadr is the 23rd night, so I will talk about how we can go about contemplating on the Quran in a very practical way. But just for now, I would like to put forward this point, that the stories of the prophets, these are brilliant places for us to start with, especially with our children when we want to gain lessons. We saw already how many stories? 2 stories from the life of Nabi Ibrahim, when he smashed up the idols, and then when he spoke to his son about sacrificing. So another story is from Surah Yusuf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Yusuf, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ إِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Indeed, in the stories of the prophets, there is ibrah, there is lessons. Allah is telling us Himself that these stories of the prophets, don't just think they are just ordinary stories. There are lessons, there is ibrat for all of us to learn from. Now, this story is especially, again, I want to say these points especially for my youth, for my younger brothers and sisters, but also they apply to all of us. It's all about resisting temptation. We are all faced with temptation from time to time, whatever it might be. Whether it's because we are fasting, it might be food, water, it might be because of the opposite gender, it might be because of other things which are prohibited for us. Now, how can we deal with temptations, especially young, unmarried youth? Well, the best example is from the Quran and the life of Nabi Yusuf. Look how he dealt with it. These are some practical tips. 4 practical tips I would like to extract from the verses that relate to how Nabi Yusuf dealt with Zulaykha. Now, just to put the whole story into context before we mention the practical points. You will recall that the brothers of Nabi Yusuf had this jealousy about Nabi Yusuf, right? Because Nabi Yaqub's love for Nabi Yusuf was so much that the other brothers were jealous. That why doesn't our father love us that much? So, and of course, jealousy is one of the most destructive things that anyone can have. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, he says that jealousy consumes faith just like a fire consumes dry wood. Jealousy eats up the person. It consumes them just like a fire consumes dry wood. Very quickly it'll burn it up. So anyway, these brothers had this jealousy for Nabi Yusuf. So what did they do? They devised this plot that we will throw him in a well and hopefully someone will pick him up and take him far away. He'll be away from us and he'll be away from our father. So they do this, they tell a lie to their father, they gain permission from him, and then they come back and say that he's been eaten by a wolf. So now Nabi Yusuf in the well, he is saved by that caravan that comes. The caravan takes him to Egypt and he is given a place in a palace. He is taken to the palace of one of the chiefs of Egypt. So let's pick it up from there. Now, the wife of this chief, Zulaykha, or sometimes is written as Zalikha. In any case, let's stick with Zulaykha. She wants Nabi Yusuf. Nabi Yusuf, unmarried, extremely handsome, with great character. So, she wants to go after him. She locks all the doors when he's in that innermost chamber. And she calls him to her. Now, look at this situation. One of those temptations that anyone could be in. Or they might be in a similar type of situation where shaitan is now wanting to tempt them. Look at the response. It would have been so easy. In a chamber, all the doors are locked, nobody would have known. But look what he does. 4 things that we must always bear in mind whenever we are tempted with anything. When Zulaykha comes to him and she wants to have Nabi Yusuf, first of all, he says, Ma'azallah. He seeks refuge in Allah. This means that not just saying, A'udhu Billah, like I explained the other night, he truly and sincerely seeks refuge in Allah. Then what does he do? He says, Innahu Rabbi, that Allah is my Lord. Meaning that at these times, let's seek refuge in Allah, but then let's remember who our Lord is. Let's remember that He's not just our creator, but He is our nourisher. He's our sustainer. He's our Rabb. Innahu Rabbi. He doesn't mention any other name of Allah. He is my Lord. Meaning that my Lord, if He's my nourisher and sustainer, He will look after me. He will provide for me when the time is right. This thing, whatever I need, He will provide for me. I don't have to have it in an illegal way. Thirdly, he says, Ahsana mathwai. This means that Allah, He has provided for me a great abode, a very nice place to live. Look where he was, stuck in a well. Now where is he? He's in that great palace. So he says, He's provided me ahsana mathwai. So my brothers and sisters, the third point, when we are tempted with anything satanic, anything that goes against the Sharia, think of our blessings. That, oh Allah, why should I go after this temptation? It might be just a look at a non-mahram. It might be, like I said, a quick drink or eating something haram, or in the month of Ramadan, or it might be something else, music. It might be a ghiba that seems very sweet to engage in ghiba, either saying it or listening about ghiba. At that point, the third thing we should do is recall our blessings. Why do we need to do that? When Allah has given us so much blessing, what hasn't He given us? He's given us life, He's given us our parents, our family, our faith. To be the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen is no small blessing. Our community, our wealth, our possessions. He has given us all of these things. Why do I need to do that thing? And then the fourth thing he does is he remembers the akhirah. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. The zalimun will not be prosperous. Those who are unjust will not be successful. So what he is doing here is remembering the akhirah. Because the zalimun, they will get their hisab and kitab in the akhirah. They will get their punishment in the akhirah. So for my brothers and sisters, especially for my younger ones, let's recall these 4 things whenever we are tempted. First of all, ma'adallah, we do isti'adha. We seek refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. Then we recall that Allah is our Rabb. He is our nourisher and sustainer. He will provide when the time is right, just like He has always provided for us. Thirdly, we remember our blessings. And fourthly, we remember that whatever we do, even that small look at the non-mahram, even that small ghiba, everything will be accounted for in the akhirah. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, as a summary, in honor of Mawla Amir, because he was the greatest fatah, and in order to just share some thoughts with my brothers and sisters about how we can raise our children to be fatahs and chivalrous people, and also to increase the futuwa in ourselves, we saw how Nabi Ibrahim was really an epitome of fatah, as were the companions of the cave. Allah refers to them as fatahs for a particular reason, because they had those 5 characteristics. They were brave and courageous, they had honor, they had courage and were loyal, they had consideration for others, and they upheld the truth. Then we saw how the Ahlul Bayt were also fatahs at a young age. We have at least these 3 imams that I spoke about, who were leaders of the community at a very young age. So we should also try and make our youth more and better leaders, inshallah. Also, we saw that from our 8th Holy Imam, how he trained his holy son, the 9th Holy Imam, those lessons that we gain from this, such as regular communication, making a point to know about what they are doing and taking an interest in them and focusing on their spiritual upbringing, not just their physical and material well-being. And then we saw how Nabi Ibrahim spoke to his son, how his son spoke to him when there was that incident about sacrificing Hazrat Ismail. And finally, these 4 points that we gain from the blessed life of Nabi Yusuf, of how we can always resist temptation. Let's all recite a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, through the intercession of Amir al-Mu'mineen, through the intercession of the Quran, through the intercession of all the Aimma alayhimus salam, enable us to raise our children to be fatahs, inshallah. Oh Allah, enable us to increase the futuwa in ourselves as parents. Oh Allah, enable us to always live and die with the wilaya of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Oh Allah, enable us to always act according to the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, bless this center and all those who frequent it. Oh Allah, enable us to increase the capacity in our leadership of the community. Oh Allah, forgive us and our forefathers for our sins. Bring relief to all those who are facing difficulty around the world, and hasten the appearance of the 12th Holy Imam. Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah sharif. Assalamu alaikum.
Ali Moulana, 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 Ali